Welcome to Lawyers Who Care, the video show podcast that highlights attorneys that go above and beyond for their clients. And on each episode, we will meet a new lawyer and they will share stories of when they went beyond legal counsel for the benefit of their client. My name is Andrew Samalin. I'm the principal of Samalin Wealth, a nationally recognized wealth management firm for lawyers, law firms, and their clients. And let's applaud lawyers who care and learn from them. Today, my guest is Linda Crane of Crane Law Group in Chicago, Illinois. She is an estate planning attorney. And welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Andrew. It's good to be
So,
here.
Linda, tell us about your firm.
Well, I have a small law firm in Chicago, sort of a boutique practice that I started when I was still a law professor, and decided that in addition to my teaching responsibilities, that I saw a need in the community for estate planning advice among families, especially first generation wealth gatherers. And so I just started doing that. And when I retired from law teaching 14 years ago, my firm was already 12 years old. So we're celebrating our 22nd anniversary now. And during that time, I focused on probate and estate planning. And because in addition to estate planning, I do also do probate work and asset protection, separating out assets in order to protect them, especially for entrepreneurs who are curious about how to do that. And so I work directly with families. I don't compete necessarily for the family business representation, because every business owner has a family. And so I really like to bring the attention directly to the family.
And while we were warming up today, we talked a little bit about some of those components. Can you kind of share on how your practice is integrating some of those components into it from a
Yes,
fiduciary
absolutely.
level or?
Well, no matter what activities we as lawyers engage in with people, especially when they're doing planning, there's always a need to especially when you're talking about things that you're putting in place for the future, to anticipate the possibility that the client who you're working with one-on-one may not be the person who the plan is designing to execute its instructions. And in general, that's what plans are. There are a series of instructions that are being left generally for somebody else to follow. And selecting the person who's going to follow those instructions is a really crucial step in my work with my clients, to get them to understand the importance of that, to get them to look inside and be quite honest with themselves about who those people are who would be best suited to make certain types of decisions as opposed to other types of decisions. And to a certain extent, that's one reason why we have several different documents, not because we couldn't combine the content and the subject matter of those separate documents into a single document, but because we're separating out the selection of the fiduciaries that the creator of the documents has named inside of each one to perform a specific function. Something as simple as an executor of a will, or as complicated as, a trust protector of a trust.
And as part of that work, I'm assuming that some of your clients don't know even what to ask for in that topic or with that topic. So do you want to share what some of those different roles might look like within the context of a fiduciary?
Oh, absolutely. So let's say with the basic estate plan, which consists of, let's say, a will, a revocable living trust, and 2 powers of attorney. There are other documents that can be included in a relatively basic plan as well. But each one of those documents requires that the principal name a fiduciary to step into their shoes under certain circumstances in the future if they're unable to play that role for themselves or to make those sorts of decisions for themselves. With wills, of course, wills only come into existence when a person dies. So the person who creates the will is never the actual fiduciary under the will, or is not the one who's executing the will. The person who is responsible for the administration of a person's estate after they die under the will is called an executor. And it's that executor who is tasked with stepping into the shoes of a person who's already deceased, and as though they came back to life for a temporary period of time during which this person wraps up their worldly affairs. That is the only job, starting from the assets they had on the date of death to the date when the probate administration is closed, or the administration is closed when the value of the estate is at zero. All of these different documents that contain fiduciaries call them by different names. And so that's one of the things that a lot of people find very sort of confusing. As I said, the executor is the label we attach to the fiduciary in a will, but in trust, the label that we attach to the fiduciary is trustee. They perform very similar roles. After the person dies, they follow the instructions that were written down inside of the trust for the administration of the trust, especially with respect to the assets that are left behind. But the trustee can also be in authority before the person dies, because unlike a will, a trust can come into existence during the life of the person who creates it. A person can be their own trustee. So there are three main parties to a trust: the creator of the trust, or the grantor of the trust. That's the person who created it. The trustee is the person who has legal authority over controlling the assets in the trust, actually the legal owner of the trust assets, and the beneficiary. And initially, when I'm working with clients, almost always, my client wears all three of those hats. They are the creator of their trust, they are the trustee of their trust, and they are also the beneficiary of their trust. But when they become disabled, or if they pass away, they have named someone who will step into the role of trustee of the trust in their stead, because they can no longer do it. And obviously, if they're deceased, they can no longer be the beneficiary either. So the trust will name other people who become beneficiaries later. But it's the role of the trustee to make sure that those instructions are followed. In the case of the powers of attorney, those are only effective during the life of a person. And so if a person becomes disabled and they're no longer able to take care of their property affairs or their health care matters, then there's a power of attorney agent who is authorized under the terms of the power of attorney to make those decisions for them. And that's a really good example of why there are two. You've got a power of attorney for healthcare and a power of attorney for property. But sometimes the person who's best suited to be the power of attorney agent for property-related matters is not the best person for healthcare matters.
Linda, I hear you. And I have to tell you, if I was wanting to go to law school, I would want you to be my professor.
Well, I have a lot of former students who I hope feel that way.
By the way, just so everyone knows, this is the Lawyers Who Care video show podcast that highlights attorneys that go above and beyond. And obviously, we are on the we're on the phone. We are on a podcast with an expert in the field. This is Linda Crane of the Crane Law Group in Chicago, Illinois. Linda, so that people can get in touch with you for your practice, because you know, we could keep going with this, and it's just terrific. Can you give people the best way to reach out to you, whether by phone, email, social?
You know, the best way probably is to call my office. The phone number is 312-546-4902. And my email address is lcrane@cranelawgroup.net. And if they mention that they are contacting me because of this podcast, I'll offer them a free initial consultation.
Oh, well, thank you. They're going to appreciate that. If you're an attorney and know one that might be appropriate, please feel free to reach out to us at 914-666-6600, 914-666-6600. My very special guest today, Linda Crane of the Crane Law Group. Linda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been fun.